Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker, shields, debt slaves, serfs, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks, Panama paper watchers. I'm a useful idiot. Welcome. And I want to go back to the Panama Papers one more time, at least for now. And that's the revelation about all the Israeli companies and shareholders that have been revealed by this leak as well. And that's an interesting part of this quotient. Not necessarily because I want to pick on Israel, as everyone seems to think whenever you mention Israel, but because the fact that they are ostensibly a strong U.S. ally, and if this was a hit piece orchestrated by United States efforts, then interesting that Israel is included on this. And also need to clarify, as usual, that as we know, not all these tax havens are for evading taxes and hiding money, although one could argue that most of them are, but there's a lot of legitimate reasons to use these, and it is technically legal. But nonetheless, the story breaking in Israel is quite a big story in Israel. It splashed all over their newspapers. It was easy to find material on this, as well as the fact that the Israeli government is launching a probe into this, and 600 Israeli companies and over 850 shareholders from Israel have been indicated in the papers. It includes the usual oligarchs and lawyers and military industrial complex figures, military people, government officials, and includes everything from real estate fraud to money laundering to tax shelters to shell companies, the usual stuff we're used to. And one of the stories that's part of this that was the most interesting to me was bank Leumi, that has which is one of Israel's largest bank, in fact, its second largest bank, and it had a branch in Jersey, the Channel Islands, that provided tax shelters. So once again, we find yet another country that has its own system of tax evasion and tax shelters set up, and Israel is no exception. So they have a branch, or they had a branch, because actually they just recently closed this branch last October. But there's a lot of correspondence in the Panama Papers between the Panama law firm in the center of this and Bank Leumi. And incidentally, this Jersey Island, the Jersey in the Channel Islands, also is the same place where Netanyahu holds tax shelter accounts at the Royal Bank of Scotland. So everybody has their own choice for what kind of tax shelters they want to use. And interestingly enough, too, the Bank Leumi paid a $400 million settlement after an investigation into tax evasion schemes provided to American clients. And this was paid out to clients. And this was paid out to the U.S. Department of Justice. So actually, a couple years ago, this happened. And there we have it. So we already know that Bank Leumi is already in U.S. radar as far as providing tax havens for U.S. citizens. And in fact, just last year, 3 bank executives from that bank had to pay back $1.3 million as part of the settlement. And also, it turns out another bank, Hapoalim, used the Panama firm to set up trust funds for more tax shelters. And then, just like the Panama law firm, Mossack Fonseca has branches in the United States, they also have a branch in Israel. And in fact, that bank and Mossack Fonseca were in the middle of a real estate fraud scandal in 2002 that had to do with 1,000-year leases on property in Jerusalem. So anyway, that's I've attached some articles below. There's an extensive coverage of all these different big players in Israel who are involved in being revealed in their activities in these Panama Papers, and it looks very much like the same MO that we see around the globe, a cross-section of Israeli society and elites who are involved in all sorts of tax schemes for all sorts of various reasons. So once again, worth a look if you want to find out more about this. And doing research, I also found out that one of the reasons that Israel became a tax haven, and this is a trend that goes back to 2003. So Israel's been a tax shelter since 2003, and then the possibilities of tax shelters there were expanded with an income tax ordinance, and it basically had so that they don't tax foreign assets of immigrants and returning residents for 10 years. And of course, all everybody had to do is see that and know that they could take advantage of their status and shuffle their money into Israel as a tax shelter. And Israel was well aware of it and has since changed the law, but it was used by a lot of foreign Jews, and apparently globally $5 billion in foreign Jewish money is hidden in Israel. And in fact, just recently, hundreds of luxury homes were raided that were used by Jews in France for tax evasion and money laundering. And so as of 2 years ago, Israel and the U.S. came up with an agreement, along with all the other foreign countries that signed up with this new disclosure law to try and close down tax evasion by U.S. government efforts. So anyway, in 2014, Israel and the U.S. came up with this agreement that Israel would turn over the names of American citizens holding accounts in Israeli banks, and so there we have it. We have Israel is just another part of this global elite. No surprise there, but kind of a big scandal in Israel. So I thought I would cover it because it is quite a few companies involved. 600 Israeli companies and 850 shareholders for just Israel. So interesting piece of this puzzle. And it also mentioned in one of the articles too that a senior Palestinian Authority official used this same Panama firm to funnel money to Palestine. So no surprise there, along with Saudi Arabia and other big players that have been pointed out, Arab players and Muslim players that have been pointed out in the Panama Papers. We have people in the Palestine Authority, because as hard as it is for people to believe, there's actually an elite Palestinian class as well, however small, and certainly they are subject to the same predilections as elites around the world. So anyway, there we have it. Israel's part in this global scandal, and there you have it. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too?